Previously, in episode 86, we built what I called an algae filter. I received many comments, questions, suggestions, as well as criticisms. Well, tag along with me today as I continue to explore the world of using algae to consume aquarium algae. Probably been a couple of years now since we installed that filter, and I guess I would have to admit that it didn't work as well as I wanted it to, but I've seen enough things that have convinced me that I believe it's the right direction. We just need to improve the effectiveness. If you look back in past episodes of 86, we added a Rubbermaid tub off to the side of the aquarium and placed basically a security light, a fluorescent security light over the top of it, and attempted to grow algae in there. We started off with some of that spaghetti algae that never really seemed to do real well, although ironically I can still find a couple of pieces left inside the algae that's floating around. My friend Rick gave us some Caulerpa out of his tank, which did catch on, and we actually grew quite a large clump of it. But the problem with Caulerpa is if you over-harvest it, or on occasion, for whatever reason, it decides to go into reproduction, the next time I arrived, it was all gone. Over the course of the last couple of months, a few sprigs have arisen here and there, but certainly not enough to duplicate what I had envisioned in my mind. Although I will tell you that with the slime kind of algae that seem to be growing down inside this filter, which there's not that many, and I look upon it as a bit of a failure, or certainly at the very best, a very inefficient attempt at doing what I originally envisioned. And that was, again, a number of algae growing inside there, or maybe one species really growing that you could harvest on a regular basis, and that it would remove those nutrients from the water as you took that algae out. I think, though, now that after episode 102, Scrubbing with Algae, and I invite you to go back and review episode 102, which brings forth the algae scrubber, not the algae filter, but the algae scrubber concept, which really is a lot more efficient. And the interesting part of it goes back to biological filtration. If you increase the amount of oxygen available to a media to grow on a very thin surface in very thin sheets of water, it will flourish, such as bacteria that form a biological filter in a wet-dry trickle filter. The criticism towards it is it's too effective, too efficient, and it produces nutrients. Well, that's what a biological filter is supposed to do: convert waste from one form to another form, ultimately changing it into some other lesser toxic compound. Anyhow, I'm getting off the trail. The same approach can be applied towards using or growing algae in an attempt to consume nutrients. And like the Santa Monica brand algae scrubber that you saw that we used in episode 102, it has a single spray rod with a single dangling screen on it that is illuminated from two sides. So it's a very efficient and effective means of growing algae, and that water is flowing across that screen in very thin sheets. So again, there's an abundance of oxygen available to it, and that algae really flourishes. The real irony is the algae grown on the screen in the Santa Monica algae filter, or in algae scrubbers in general, develop right out of the tank. You don't have to seed it or encourage it to grow. You just create the environment, and those algae will develop on their own. And those algae are what consume the nutrients, and it's the nutrients in the tank that are allowing all these various algae, hair algae, to grow. Anyhow, I realized that I could improve on my algae filter by doing two things. One, dropping the water level in there, and so whatever media I'm now going to grow algae on is in a air environment as opposed to a submersed environment, and there is a difference in the amount of oxygen between the two. And two, I'll be growing algae like on the Santa Monica filter on a screen suspended above the water level, and water will be discharged across that screen, which again the algae will grow. And even though in my particular application I'm only illuminating one side of the screen, it's better than no sides. And the whole point of the algae filter episode was to build something, and I'm not a DIY guy, but that algae filter and the PVC pipe, I think the most expensive thing was probably the security light, and that itself was under $100 if I remember right. So anyhow, what I've done today is made kind of a dual spray rod arrangement. I have that discharge pipe inside the algae filter as it is now that has a little elbow on there that kind of creates circulation in a filled up environment, and at the other end is a standpipe with a T with two inlets because if one plugs, the other one can still handle the overflow. Well, I'm going to eliminate, I'm going to drop the water level by eliminating that standpipe at the end, the drain end, so there will be no water level in there, and I will replace that little elbow with this little spray apparatus here. And you can see I've been drilling these holes in here, and what I will end up doing is attaching some screen in a bowl sort of shape like this. And this spray bar will spray across this screen that will be illuminated because it'll all be sitting right underneath that security light, and I'll be growing algae on this screen, and the water level will be below this. So I'm going to use my algae filter basically as an area to contain this spray rod and netting arrangement, which will encourage again algae to grow in a highly aerobic or highly oxygenated environment. So let me work on finishing this, and we're going to be servicing this tank come Monday morning, so it's appropriate time to make that change. So come along as we learn some more about scrubbing with algae and learning how to really eliminate elements or nutrients in the tank.
When in Los Angeles, make it a point to stop in Long Beach, California at Age of Aquariums, 2642 Cherry Avenue, just off the 405 freeway near Signal Hill. At Age of Aquariums, their knowledgeable staff showcases designer aquariums featuring colorful corals and exotic fish, a spectacular four-sided 500-gallon living coral reef, along with a wide selection of coral frags and a large selection of saltwater fish, the cute, the graceful, and the not-so-cute. Age of Aquariums also carries a selection of popular freshwater fish for the beginning hobbyist. Along with a full line of aquarium supplies and supplements, Age of Aquariums quarantines and medicates all their new fish and proudly provides LA and Orange County's largest aquarium maintenance service. Age of Aquarium is located at 2642 Cherry Avenue, just off the 405 freeway near Signal Hill. Open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. For more information, dial 562-438-6252 or visit ageofaquariums.biz. Reef Hobbyist Magazine believes that our hobby, our fellow hobbyists, and the animals in our care are best served by the free distribution of quality information. Reef Hobbyist Magazine provides hobbyists with critical husbandry information with an emphasis on marine ornamental breeding efforts. Reef Hobbyist Magazine is available for free in local fish stores across the country, or you can subscribe at www.reefhobbyistmagazine.com. Are you ready for the Marine Aquarium Expo this coming March 31st through April 1st of 2012? This is the largest aquarium consumer trade show in North America and a destination spot for marine hobbyists. Held at the newly remodeled OC Fair and Event Center and featuring over 100 exhibitors, speakers, demonstrations, and a huge product raffle. There's even a fin zone for entertaining young hobbyists. That's the Marine Aquarium Expo at the Orange County Fairgrounds this coming March 31st through April 1st, 2012, Saturday 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Sunday 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Adults $15, senior and military only $10, kids under 12 are free. For more information, visit marineaquariumexpo.com.
Okay, we've arrived at the 150-gallon soft coral reef tank, the one that's had the algae filter on it. You can see that there is still some algae growing in there. This is all simply just loose algae floating around at the surface in there. There's a few pieces of caulerpa in there. There might even be a piece of that Chaeto or keto or spaghetti algae, but most of it is that brown, kind of puffy, foamy slime algae. Ironically, I think that's probably what's going to end up growing on the screen, and that's probably the most effective at removing a lot of those nutrients from the system. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is get the tank serviced first. We have dead coral skeletons in there that we need to trade out. We need to clean the glass and vacuum the gravel and do a 30-gallon water change. And then we'll go ahead and install our new algae screen in the algae filter.
You've probably noticed a greater emphasis on the decorative coral skeletons as opposed to the living corals. The reason for this is simple. We're still trying to get rid of the algae and still trying to prove to the homeowner that the algae won't come back and overwhelm or overtake the living corals. He's allowed me to place the decorative corals in there, and in my opinion, this makes for still a very attractive look. It also has a clean look to it. And so, as with all of my aquarium service customers who use the decorative coral skeletons, we've got two sets. One that I've bleached and prepared in advance, which you just saw me spread out onto the towel. A second set that's currently in the aquarium getting dirty. And you'd be surprised as how quickly those corals come dirty. Usually it takes about 2 weeks before it becomes very noticeable. Anything thereafter becomes even much more noticeable. It seems as though algae grows exponentially. On day 2, you might have a few green or brown spots. On day 12, those green or brown spots are now green or brown patches. By day 14, the corals are starting to show a green or a brown fuzz. And after that, it seems like daily they begin to become much more unattractive. So I've removed the lid from the algae filter, and it's this excess amount of water in here that I'm going to end up getting rid of to accommodate the new algae screen. It's also this excess amount of water that will end up replenishing the water that's low in the filter down below. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this drain standpipe to drop the water level in here. Knowing that I'm going to be doing a water change here shortly, now seems the appropriate time to drain that excess water out of the algae filter. It'll flow down to the sump below, where ultimately that's the water I'm going to draw out of the tank to perform not only the vacuuming, but the water change in the tank as well. I'm holding the standpipe just slightly above the bulkhead. This will allow me to help block some of the chunks of algae in the filter from flowing down into the sump below. And now with the algae filter empty of water and that water down in the reservoir of the filter below, we can go ahead and begin to do the water change. But first I want to go through and clean the inside panels of the acrylic. I'll use my aquarium magnets to do this. Aquarium cleaning magnets are available for both glass as well as acrylic aquariums. The acrylic aquarium is the one that you have to be much more careful with, as you can easily scratch it. although with some significant attempt you can also scratch a glass aquarium. But in the case of acrylic, just simply getting a granule of gravel trapped between the aquarium magnet and the interior wall of the aquarium, you can easily create a switchback or Zorro before you realize that you're actually scratching the tank. The only upside to scratching an acrylic aquarium is an acrylic aquarium specifically, you're able to polish the scratch out. Glass aquariums is much more difficult to do so, and obviously in both cases it requires the entire tank to be drained of its water. And with the front viewing panels cleaned, we'll now go ahead and start cleaning the inside of the end as well as the back panels. We have a small acrylic cleaning pad that we'll use to rub this on the inside surface and try to rub away whatever algae have grown upon it. Once we've got the back of the tank cleaned, we'll use the algae pad on the long handle to reach those hard-to-gain areas more towards the front of the aquarium. Speaking of backs, make sure to come on back for part 2 as we finish up doing the water change in this tank and then start making the modification to the algae filter, or what I hope to be a more effective version of an algae filter.